Syriza and for Tsipras, and that is what is our message to the Europeans. Don't follow the populists. They will never deliver what they have promised to you. And the third argument why it is so great to start our campaign for the European elections in 2019 here in Athens is that I and the EPP is amongst friends. Because Nea Demokratia under the leadership of Kyriakos and with all the friends were among the first who said to me as candidate, yes, we support you, we will win, first internally and then afterwards also on European level. The European People's Party will have also in the future the biggest group in the European Parliament, that's for sure. And, ladies and gentlemen, we will lead the European Commission in the future. And dear friends, one promise is clear. Next time when we meet here, the next time, we will show that the European Union will be led by an EPP Commission President, and this country of Greece will be governed by a Prime Minister, and that is Kyriakos Mitsotakis, the next Prime Minister of Greece. Ladies and gentlemen, when we as EPP, when we do campaign and we present our ideas for the future, we always have in mind that we have an history. We have a period in the past where we had already a lot of responsibility, and we have to tell people that we did our job. That is a precondition for trust. Why do I say this? Because the predecessor as Commission President, the acting Commission President is Jean-Claude Juncker, a president from us, from our party. And his predecessor was José Manuel Barroso, also an EPP Commission President. And that's why it's important to underline always that we are in a bigger, let me say, historic background, what we are doing as EPP. Why do I say this? Because in the last 10 years, we created European-wide, we are aware about the crisis times, but European-wide, we created in the last 10 years 13 million new jobs. We have now today in Europe a growth rate of more than 2%, and all the Euro countries are under the 3% deficit criteria, which is guaranteeing a sustainable growth for the long-term development. And on the migration thing, Dimitris is working on this field as responsible commissioner. We reduced in the last 5 years the number of illegal arrivals here in the European Union by around 95%. And, ladies and gentlemen, in the Brexit talks, the European Union is having this negative element of Brexit in mind, is still united. The 27 are strongly united and have a common position towards our British friends. And having this in mind, all these are three elements: economic development, limiting illegal migration, and the Brexit unity. Ladies and gentlemen, we can tell people that we as EPP, we did our job in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years. We can be built on the future of Europe, on what we delivered in the past, because that is the precondition for getting trust, when you can tell people we did our job in the past. Not yet everything is perfect, that's clear, but we did in the last years our job, and that's why people can trust also in us for the future of Europe. That is the first element. And on the longer run, ladies and gentlemen, on the more broader perspective, I must tell you, I want to tell you, that I am 46 years old. And I'm the first generation on this continent who can say that I live all over Europe in peace and freedom. My father's generation, born in 1947, was the first generation who grew up in peace. But half of the continent was locked up behind the Iron Curtain. And my grandfather was in war, like a lot of people during these times were in war. I'm the first generation on this continent who can say that I live all over Europe. We can live all over Europe in peace and freedom. And ladies and gentlemen, this today's Europe was founded by Christian Democrats, by Adenauer, De Gasperi, Schumann, by a lot of Christian Democrats on this continent. It was founded by us, by the Christian Democrats, And that's why in the year 2019, we will fight against those who want to destroy our Europe. The nationalists will be our enemies. We fight against them, ladies and gentlemen. The meaning of this looking back aspect of politics is, first, you can trust, because we showed already that we can deliver. Secondly, that we are based on history, and especially for my generation, again, 46 years old, after my nomination as top candidate for the EPP, my first trip was towards Auschwitz in Poland, because I think especially for my generation it's so important to underline that we know the most important message for Europe is never again nationalism, never again anti-Semitism, never again egoism on this continent. That is one aspect. And the second aspect, ladies and gentlemen, is when we ask now for trust among the Europeans, the second element is that we have a plan. We know how to reform, how to build up the next chapter for Europe, to open this new chapter for Europe. And the title of our program is, what you saw already, The Power of We. The common understanding that together we are much stronger than alone. And what we want to ask the people in Europe is to give the EPP leadership also a mandate. We presented in the last weeks a lot of ideas. I was traveling around Europe in my so-called listening tour to get an idea about the questions, the problems and the fears of the people, to give a proper answer as EPP for the future. That is what we did. And the program, the manifesto of the EPP party, and especially the key promises we will present today, are based on this listening aspect, to take the concerns and the fears of the people into account. I must tell you one short story. I was receiving 2 weeks ago a document from the European Commission. So I really respect a lot of our officials there in Brussels. But I received a document, and the document had the title 2019 European Commission Plan for the next 5 years, the goals we want to achieve. And sorry, I saw the document and I thought, is this a joke? That the European Commission, so the officials in Brussels, tell us what is the program for the next 5 years. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It's not up to the bureaucrats. Again, I respect a lot of them, but it's not up to the bureaucrats. It's up to the people of Europe to give us a mandate for the next 5 years on the idea of what they want to achieve in the next 5 years. And what is the content, ladies and gentlemen? We structured our idea with 3 pillars. The first pillar is to look for a strong Europe which is ready to protect the interests of our European citizens. When I am traveling around Europe, I hear different ideas for the future. But one thing is mainly all over Europe in common, and that is still the fear about the migration challenge. The question, do you as a politician, do the state has a full control about our border? But ladies and gentlemen, a key demand from the European citizens of today. And that's why this is one of our key promises. We want to protect the European borders. The EPP will protect the European borders, and especially on the question of to strengthen the European pillar of the border protection. We agreed on European level, Dimitris, to establish 10,000 Frontex officers, but the European Council was only ready to accept the establishment of these 10,000 Frontex officers to assist Italy, Greece, Cyprus, Spain, and all the other countries in the south, to help them, to show solidarity, to establish this 10,000 Frontex officers until 2027. That is 12 years after the big crisis in 2015. Ladies and gentlemen, that is unacceptable. If we want to show that Europe protects the border, we have to be much more faster. In 2022, we have to establish the 10,000 Frontex officers. The state decides who is arriving on Europe, and not the smugglers decides, ladies and gentlemen. That is one of the promises. The second promise in the pillar of a strong Europe is that, ladies and gentlemen, we have to fight against terror and organized crime. My working place is in Brussels. I I have there one office and another one in Strasbourg. And we are experienced in what it means to face terror, because in Brussels we had 2 attacks, and in Strasbourg we had an attack last December. You know really what it means when a whole city is under shock. And ladies and gentlemen, what we have to do is to combine all our forces in the fight against terrorism and organized crime, and that means for us as EPP to have a mandatory exchange of information among the police organizations and to establish a European FBI with an investigation capacity to really fight against the criminals on this continent. We want to have a safe Europe for the future. Let me add the second pillar. First pillar was a strong Europe. The second pillar is it's a smart Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in an aging society. A lot of people are getting older, and that is a good development, but I think we have to care about their special demands. A lot of people who are getting older have simply the wish that they can stay at home, that they are not forced to go to a retirement home. And I think with a lot of innovation, we can achieve this, to establish a kind of a smart home where people can stay at home with dignity and with their idea to be close to their families. A Europe which thinks from the perspective of people is what we want to achieve. And I give you a second example for the smart Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, 40% of us Europeans will face in their life cancer. And everybody who experienced already in his family, among friends, what cancer means, then you know how you feel, so helpless. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine that we create a master plan in fight against cancer. We combine all our money, all our research capacity, and all our databases, and we Europeans would be the first continent who can stop or even cure cancer, to give an answer on cancer, to get the feeling as Europeans that we achieved that the world is becoming a better place. I would fight for such a master plan in fight against cancer, ladies and gentlemen. I started my listening tour this year, at the beginning of this year, in January, in Cyprus. We had an evening event with our party friends there, and then in the morning we were driving to a small village, and we had a meeting with mayors and with farmers there in Cyprus. And then I presented my ideas in the listening tour, and then one participant raised his hand and said, "Mr. Weber, everything fine, I will vote for you, everything is okay, but I must tell you, migration is important and economic development, jobs are important, no doubt about this, but I want to tell you my biggest problem as farmer is that I cannot anymore work with the amount of bureaucracy the European Union is delivering for me every day. So please try to do something against red tape." That is what some would say it's a small issue. No, it's not a small issue. It's a question from people. And we politicians have to care about the questions of the people. And what do I promise? I think under the leadership of Jean-Claude Juncker, we achieved already that we are not creating more bureaucracy in Europe. But we didn't manage to abolish and to stop and to reduce the number of bureaucratic activities for our citizens. And that's why one of the EPP promises is that we will abolish 1,000 existing legislations in today's European Union, that we are not only stopping more bureaucracy, that we are also reducing current bureaucracy in today's European Union. And the final element in this aspect of smart Europe are jobs. The second big question. Migration is the first one, and the second is our jobs. You know, we already created, I said it already, 13 million new jobs. That's why the EPP approach is to continue this path. And I think with a new government here in Greece, together with Kyriakos Mitsotakis, and also with an EPP leadership on European level, we can really open a new door also for Greece, that we can create further investment, which will create finally further jobs here in Greece, with investment in infrastructure and innovation, with the trust into the single market, where we have to reduce burden among us and some borders among the economies in the European Union. We are the party who believes that free trade is a thing which creates jobs for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, the communists in the European Parliament, Syriza and all the other friends, always voted against free trade agreements. They didn't create new jobs. We as EPP, we are in favor of free trade agreements, and that's why we will create these 5 million new jobs. Strong Europe, smart Europe, and the third pillar is a kind Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a Europe which is responsible towards our environment. I met last week Greta Thunberg, the famous young lady from Sweden, who is now organizing and a symbol for the demonstrations European-wide and even globally for the fight against climate change. And the young generation has the EPP on their side. We are committed to the idea that in 2015 we want to be a continent, we want to achieve that our economy is running without CO2 emissions for the future. That is our goal. But there are further questions on the environmental side. I tell you, when I see the pictures with all the plastic in our oceans, then I think everybody has an idea that there are further problems ahead of us. And yes, we as Europeans, we achieved to manage a ban against single plastic use. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a big achievement, but I think that will not rescue the oceans on global level. That's why we as EPP, we promise to install a ban for single-use plastic on global level. So a global treaty to fight against plastic in our oceans will be one of our promises as EPP, ladies and gentlemen. And then two final recommendations or ideas for what we understand with the idea of a kind Europe is that we are thinking of a social perspective of Europe. Yes, in the next decades we will face a lot of changes, fundamental changes due to digitalization. We all know this, that there is something going on, and this will be a revolution ahead of us. And not everybody will benefit out of these developments, especially when we look to the labor market. Not everyone will benefit. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a big chance for us to show that the European Union is also a union based on the social market economy, what we as Christian Democrats believe in. And what does this practically mean today? Dear ladies and gentlemen, there are a few companies who will really benefit a lot from the digitalization. There are the big giants in this field. And that's why the EPP wants to establish a real European digital tax, and with such a digital tax we will finance a fund which gives those who are the losers of the development a positive future in a more digital world. So to create a digital transition fund for the future of the European Union, to assist and to help those who are the losers of the development, is one of the contributions which would give and will give the European Union a social face, ladies and gentlemen. And finally, our global responsibility is also part on this kind Europe. Trade. Ladies and gentlemen, we as EPP, we are open for trade, no doubt. But I think we have to consider how we can use our economic power as Europeans to also, let me say, deliver and spread what we believe in on global level. What do I mean with this? Imagine we would include in all the trade agreements for the future one paragraph where we say that everybody can sell his products in Europe, but we will not accept that children has to work for the products which are in European supermarkets to buy. So a global ban for child labor is a great thing we can achieve with our economic power. That are the key promises which we want to give to the Europeans. There is much more inside of our mandate, which we formulated as EPP party. There is much more included, but there are the 12 key promises we want to give to the Europeans. Ladies and gentlemen, because we think that the Europeans decide about the mandate. We want to be elected for what we promise, for what we want to do afterwards, to give us the strength to implement this into reality in the next 5 years. And the power of we is not only about content, it is also for this new chapter for Europe, a democratic Europe where people decide, where we establish a new cooperation between the Commission and the European Parliament as a base for the legitimacy of the work of the European Commission. And when the first time of the history of the European Union, a member of the European Parliament will become Commission President, and gives already this, as a symbol, gives already an idea about the strengthened democratic approach for Europe. A Europe which is, let me say, in the next 5 years also discussing, let me say, the final composition of today's European Union. We have to talk about the question, where is the end of the enlargement process? I know that here in Greece there is a special question, and in Cyprus a special question towards Turkey. But when I travel around Europe, I see a lot of people who are asking me, Mr. Weber, or dear politicians, do you think that this enlargement process will have in any a special place an end? So I think there is a need of a discussion in Europe, a general big debate in Europe, where is the final composition, where is the end of this enlargement process? And let me be frank, for the European audience, I think that Turkey is a strong partner. We have to work strongly together. We have to even upgrade our relationship on economic terms, on fight against terror, and also on culture and exchange of students. But I don't think, having especially the development in the last years in Turkey in mind, I don't think that Turkey can become member of the European Union. So that are the questions on the table for the final composition of the European Union. And when we speak about the mechanism, how Europe works, then I also want to assure the Europeans that I and we as EPP, we will be ready to protect and defend our values, the European way of life, democracy, rule of law, the independence of the judiciary, the equal treatment of men and women, the question of the social market economy, and probably the title of all the values of Europe, and that is freedom. Freedom of speech, of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of press. That is probably the title for Europe, generally speaking, when we speak about the values. And that is what we have to defend. And that's why we need an independent rule of law mechanism for the future of the European Union based on our ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, and then finally, when we speak about 2019's elections, when we speak about the question to open the new chapter, when we speak about the question, what is now to do, then I'm coming back to my first consideration at the beginning of my today's contribution. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the fundamental question of us as Europeans. When Le Pen is doing campaign in France, she stands in front of people and tells the French citizens, be proud about your nation and to hell with Europe. They are creating national emotions again, egoistic understanding about the future of Europe. And what is our answer as EPP? Let me mention one of the party leaders of my party, Franz Josef Strauss in Bavaria. He said already in the 60s of the last year, he said, Bavaria is my home, Germany is my nation, and Europe is my future. And I don't allow any nationalist and any populist to create a split out of this identity. To be proud of being about Greek and to be a European, that is the same, ladies and gentlemen. That is our program. That is our plan for a new chapter for Europe. That is our offer to the Europeans. The power of we makes clear that the people decide. People give us a mandate for the future. The power of we gives us a clear idea that the strength means unity. Unity means strength. And the power of we means that we open a new chapter for the European dream, a new chapter with optimism, not of fears, but of hope. Not of egoism, but of unity. And not of nationalism, but in favor of a strong Europe. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of Nea Demokratia, Mr. Kyriako Mitsotakis.
Κυρίες και κύριοι, παρακαλούμε υποδεχτείτε τον Πρόεδρο της Νέας Δημοκρατίας, κύριο Κυριάκο Μητσοτάκη.
Dear Manfred, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Athens. Welcome to this venue that is so full of its unique symbolism. It was here, dear Manfred, that exactly 40 years ago, on May 28, 1979, here, Konstantinos Karamanlis signed the accession treaty that allowed Greece to become the 10th member of the European Economic Community. We're so proud to be able to host this event here in Athens.